Oh, yeah.
Where you didn't actually really see it. You kind of got a glimpse of it through like a tree line or whatever. You heard something like, oh yeah, there's a snap, boom.
Oh God, don't do that.
Right, don't do that. I want to go on one of those hunts.
I do too. I don't think I got enough motivation in me to do it though.
That's question is, where did I put that?
Hunting season?
Yeah, I got it. I actually put it under the outline episodes for once. I'm really bad at this, folks. We're trying to get better. I swear to God we are.
God, we've been doing it for over a year now.
Yes, crazy, buddy.
Fucking insane,
We've
huh?
been doing this for over a year now. Thanks to everybody who's been listening.
Now, we haven't posted for over a year, but we've been recording for over a year.
We've been recording for over a year, yeah. This week's episode, if we don't include... Well, we don't know exactly when this is coming out. This will be in the 40s.
Yeah, this should be high 40s.
This should be high 40s when it comes out, right? Obviously, folks, these don't come out the exact week we record them. We record a few in advance because John and I work for a living. So what are you going to do, right? But yeah, we're definitely getting there. Over a year, man. Congratulations. Look, I'll take a cheers on that.
Absolutely. Cheers.
We've been putting in the time. I'd start today by saying thanks to everybody who's been listening, whether it's every week or sporadically. The boys at Tiny Homes Atlantic, I know, have been real big supporters, and everybody else. Travis B. at my shop has been good. Katie, who we had on his episode, Katie's a regular listener. So, yeah, we've got an episode eventually coming up with her and her husband, because we did promise to do that during her episode. So, but yes, man, it's exciting. Almost we've got a year into recording and almost a year coming up here real fast with episodes. So,
and we've got some changes planned.
There's some stuff coming up. Yep.
We're going to be modifying and shifting because this is a big learning curve for us as we go.
Right.
Like, yes, we're podcast apprentices. We're literally apprentices. We're learning new things all the time with all this shit.
Right. Trying to make things different, trying to make a few adjustments to make it more enjoyable for you as the listener, certainly, and to keep things interesting, because we did, I think, originally mention in an early episode, it's going to be difficult sometimes because there's about 40 things construction related that we could think of to talk about off the top of our heads.
Right.
And we've burned through a fair amount of those.
Right.
So that's why occasionally, folks, you get an episode that's just about something a little different that we feel like ranting about or talking about that day. And they've had some pretty good feedback.
Yeah.
The ones that were kind of not exactly construction related. So I'm glad to see that.
Right.
It's been fun, buddy.
It's been odd that people have wanted to fucking listen to us that long. I mean, like you said, we've got some longtime followers and longtime listeners, and God, we love you to death, and we're so happy for the support. And it's just fucking weird. It's flown by really fast for me. Like, really fast.
It's wild. I didn't realize we were such a high number into episodes until I looked up the other day and was trying to figure out what an episode was from way back. For someone who said, oh, where do I start? I just found out about you. And I was like, okay, well, maybe go back to here. And as I was reading through the list, I'm like, wait, 40?
Right.
43. Like, wow, okay.
Right.
Yeah, who knew we were actually doing this?
Right.
So it's been exciting, buddy. And I like the new digs.
Yeah, I gave ourselves a little bit of an upgrade.
Yeah.
Trying to get away from the goddamn mic stands is the biggest part.
Yeah, it was rough before, folks. We were sort of just using the equipment that we thought was going to work. We've been making some adjustments here. And on that note, before we get really rolling here, thanks to everyone who has supported us, not just listening and rating and reviewing, subscribing, which does really help, but that Buy Us a Beer app on our website. For the few people who have thrown us a few
God
bucks,
bless you.
Thank you so much. $5 at a time to help out this little growing podcast we put out for free for everybody who donated. Right. We really, really appreciate it. So thanks, everybody.
Part of that money went into the new digs.
Right. Yeah. We're not trying to go broke doing this. We're not millionaires or anything. We're just trying to keep this kind of going a little bit.
No, we're dumping all that money back into the podcast.
Exactly. So again, if you're enjoying it, please reach out and let us know. We're getting close to that year mark, and we're going to probably try to do something special for that 1 year episode. So,
and we're still struggling trying to figure out what that fucking looks like.
Yeah. If anybody
we keep talking about it.
I know. If anybody has any ideas, as always, that they want to hear, DM us, send us a message to 507-607-ISAW. We're more than happy to dig into anything, even if it's not construction related, as we said.
I mean, do we just fucking get drunk and go off the rails?
Man, would that be fun? Hey, listen, folks, if you're listening, if you want to hear John and I just get ripped and go off the rails on something for our 1 year anniversary episode, if I get 10 people that send us a message to say they want that, that's what we'll do.
Yep.
Unless somebody has a much better idea, which we haven't had so far.
Right.
So go ahead, buddy.
On that note, I guess we'll get into it. I want to welcome everybody to the I Shower After Work podcast. And I did say that after work podcast. We shower after work here because, God damn it, we work for a living. Today, man, we have something coming up down the pipe in our calendars that a lot of construction workers do, and you're just giddier and shit. I can tell you.
My favorite time of year,
hunting season.
Hunting season, buddy.
I mean, it is right around the corner.
It really is, man. So, like, whether you're into hunting or not, it's that time of year where the conversations on the job site turn mostly to hunting.
Most of them, yes.
You are hearing that on a daily basis. The weather is going to cool off here. And ironically, the fever on the job site goes up. People are talking. All of a sudden, you hear them talking about birds and they're talking about bucks. So,
and you see all the freaking cam footage coming out of
you're seeing
trail
all
cams.
the trail cams. Look at this bear, man. Look at this deer. I like it, man. That'd be a fun thing to talk about today, right?
Well, it's such a big, important part for us. It seems like it's almost ingrained into construction workers that we also hunt.
There's so many people that hunt that have nothing to do with construction, but it's really part of the culture of a lot of construction workers.
Right.
Most, I would say.
Right. So do you suppose that's just because they want to get the fuck out and away from the job?
It can't be anything else, buddy. That's what it is. It is excuse would be a bad word.
Right.
But I'm going to use the word excuse. It's a good excuse at the fall season. Summer's over. We got through the nice weather and we need something to look forward to. And it's out in the woods most of the time, hanging out with some buddies.
Or by ourselves,
right? Decompressing. That for those of you who don't get out there, it's great to get the bird or the elk or the deer or moose or whatever it is you're hunting. That's a fun part of it. But it's the sitting out in the quiet. I'm not taking no phone calls. There's no saw running in back. It's the decompress of the end of the year, and I'm crazy excited. I look forward to it every year.
What is your hunt of choice?
I'm a deer hunter.
You're a deer hunter.
Right. I had the opportunity, even though I didn't get many chances to ever do it in my youth. Moose was bigger back home before we left. Before I left.
That's on my bucket list.
Yeah. And again, I think I've said this before in the podcast, but if I haven't, what I have learned from my father used to be big into moose hunting a little bit, and I'll tell some more about that later. It's not as difficult as hunting, say, like an elk, which I understand is crazy difficult. I haven't done it myself. We'll also talk about that, right?
Yep.
Moose are pretty stupid, and they're so big. It's not like you got to go find them or keep your eye out for them. You see or hear a moose coming, right?
They're not gentle creatures.
Yeah. I wish I could remember which comedian made the joke years ago, but it was the fact that you just need to whistle, and that moose will stick its head up like, what was that? Oh, that's a 30-06. That's what that is, right? Moose are fun, and they're big, but it's not with a rifle, it's not a hunt, quote unquote. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
How about you, buddy? Historically, what do you like to hunt for?
I'm a bird hunter. I'm big into pheasants, or I was big into pheasants. After I lost both my hunting dogs, I kind of stopped doing that. I haven't hunted for a lot of years.
I'm adding hunting dog to the list right now. We're going to come back to that. I have some hunting dog stuff to talk to you about. Keep going, buddy.
Yeah, I loved both of my hunting dogs. They were great. But I did deer hunting. I really found myself into bird hunting, grouse, pheasant. And I think that's because I was able to keep moving a lot.
Yeah, it's more of a walking around as opposed to. I have stalked deer on the ground.
Yep.
But it's very.
Me too.
It's very. We'll get back to it. It's very unsuccessful, right?
Right.
But yeah, bird and grouse and pheasant. Yeah, you're moving around. You're trying to chase them up, especially if you have dogs.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So, listen. There's so many things, right? We're going to stay away from fishing because it don't count as hunting, right? No offense to fishermen. If you enjoy that, good on you.
Yeah.
Right? Good on you.
Yeah.
I may as well start right there. There's big game, there's bird, there's the fun of getting out of town, sitting in the hunting shack, and then there's the people who go backcountry.
Yeah, the packing in,
which I haven't done yet, but
horseback.
when people fucking talk about even hiking yourself in,
Right.
miles off the road when if you get an elk or whatever. So we're going to get into it eventually, right? So bird for you though, huh?
Yeah. I really enjoyed pheasant.
Was that a bigger thing in? I know it's huge here in the Midwest, right?
Yep.
In South Dakota or Wyoming, which was it that you started?
Oh, it's South Dakota, definitely. And
South
it's a gigantic industry.
It's huge there. is
It's
it?
huge.
Okay.
From what I understand, it's the only state in the lovely U.S. that actually has a hunting season for its state bird.
What's the state bird?
Pheasant.
Oh, the pheasant is the state bird. Okay. I didn't know places had state birds, but now that you mention that sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
A state
Every state
bird.
has a state bird.
Well, I'll tell you, man. Let me bring it up here right away. We're going to start with this, okay? Since you were born in Wyoming.
Yep.
Which, for some reason, over the history of the podcast, you scolded me, for lack of a better term, one time and said it's Wyoming.
Yeah, it's Wyoming.
That there was no G on the end, but yet now that we've gone through, you articulate more because we're talking to the people. You always say Wyoming now. I've been meaning
Man,
to
you
bring that up.
really can't let shit go, can
No,
you? You're
fuck.
just as bad as my wife.
No, fuck. Oh, you hateful fuck. South Dakota, Wyoming, and Montana, the top 3 states as far as percentage goes of the percentage of citizens who yearly hunt. South Dakota at 29 and change, Wyoming at 29 and change, and Montana at 20 and change.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, man. A lot less population. A whole lot less population, right?
So
So it's easy to skew those per capita numbers.
Right. That is what it comes down to, right? You get much less city dwelling people who wouldn't be as interested in hunting. I mean, certainly some do,
Yep.
right? We can't say that that's not the case, but
And there's fewer large cities in all those states.
absolutely right. That's the case too. So, yeah, I
ain't gonna be seeing any fucking man bun, fucking skinny jean wearing fuckers out there hunting. I can tell you that much.
I haven't seen one
Not one.
in my years. I can fucking tell you that.
Yeah.
So, bird. Let's start within the bird hunting. Okay, I'll get a story out of the way right away here. Okay, buddy. I have only bird hunted twice.
Really?
Okay. And the reason I started was back in the day, there was an electrician that worked with me, RIP. I'm not going to mention his name because in case his wife ever listens or whatever. A great guy. I had worked with him at multiple shops. Unfortunately, he was killed on the job.
Oh,
He was,
damn it.
Yeah, he was huge into pheasant and bird hunting. So we had some memorial hunts through the company and people who knew him for a couple years or whatever.
Sure.
I had to borrow a gun from a coworker.
Say that again.
I had to borrow a gun from a coworker.
Borrow?
For
Dig a hole? Burrow?
not burrow, borrow. Fuck you a little bit. Yes, borrow, as in land and not burrow, as in dig a hole. I had to borrow a. That's the Canadian coming out at me, folks. I had a couple whiskeys already today.
That was just my shot back.
Right now, I appreciate it, man. Had to borrow an over-under because I didn't have an appropriate firearm for bird hunting. Right? And people had said, "Oh, have you ever been bird hunting before?" Nope. Well, at the end of the day, they might have this in other states. I'm sure they do. The Annie Oakley hunt. Are you familiar with the Annie Oakley hunt?
Yes.
Right. So they fire a clay pigeon, and in order, you take your shot. If you miss, the next person get a chance, and if you hit it, you knock them out or whatever, right? Well, here's what happened with me. The end of the first hunt that day, we're having a good time. I hit a bird, and I say hit, not killed. I'm going to mention that in a minute here. We get to the end. We're lined up for this. I kind of understand the rules or whatever. Well, I'm taking ridiculous shots at a distance because I wasn't factoring in. It's pretty hard to hit that pigeon at a distance, right?
Oh, yeah.
Clay pigeon, that is. Well, turns out I got a little lucky. The first round, I knock out the 2 people in front of me who missed because I took a long distance shot when I probably should have just let it go and took my brand new turn next time.
Right.
Next round, same thing happens again. I knock out 2. I almost do it in the third one. We had enough people that there was groups of employees behind me standing around talking shit going, "Holy fuck, man, check Canada out. He's a
that's
ringer."
funny.
Nobody said anything. It gets to the end of the day and they're like, "You lying piece of whatever. You said you didn't know how to shoot." I'm like, no, motherfucker. I said I didn't bird hunt before. I never said I didn't know how to shoot. You
Right.
assumed
You
that.
assumed.
Right? And being Canadian, there's kind of that stigma that Canadians are really like anti-gun or whatever. I'm sure that played into it a little bit.
Oh, sure.
And it didn't hurt that the first bird I shot that day, I didn't know the not just the rules, but like the format of hunting bird, because I'd never done it before. Yep. I hit that bird went down. I walked over, a guy helped me. He had hunting dogs with him. We found that bird, and for people who don't know, the vest you wear for birding, there's a pouch on the back where you can put your birds. Well, I put the bird in the pouch. Again, I didn't know that. I picked the bird up, and I'm looking around like, the fuck do I do here?
Yep.
Well, guy comes over, nice enough. He realized I wasn't aware. He's like, hey, there's a pouch in the back. You just throw it in that. Okay, great. We're walking along. 5 minutes later, that thing wasn't dead, came alive and started freaking out. He had to come over.
You gotta wring the neck.
And he had to wring the neck, right? So, yeah. For people who are super pro animal, it's unfortunate, but you got to put the thing out of its misery. But here's me going, what in the fuck is going on?
What's happening? What's happening?
I did enjoy birding, but I don't actively go out and try to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the big game. I like getting a deer, mostly because, and I'm going to put it in the notes here so we don't forget, I don't eat wild bird as much. I mean, I have certainly a few times, but I actively will eat venison. I don't trophy hunt. I hunt for the food that I'll have to put in the freezer for the winter. Yeah. So, and
you hunt for the meat.
We should probably mention that eventually, the meat versus trophy, because that's a divisive thing with people. But tangent, buddy, tangent.
Yep. So when I got into bird hunting, I had been deer hunting before I went bird hunting. Had a lot of fun deer hunting. Shot my first buck, got fucked by the taxidermist. Still have the horns, lost the cape. Taxidermist drove his dad's business into the ground. Dickhead. But it was a lot of fun. We went up deer hunting, public land. And that's one of the reasons why I got out of deer hunting. I didn't have good deer hunting land accessible to me. Public land hunting is dangerous as fuck because it's overpopulated. It's thick with hunters. If you move around at all, you've got to have your head on a goddamn swivel, just so you don't get shot.
Inexperienced hunters on public land are dangerous.
Yep.
Dangerous.
And I remember the first doe I shot. Now, I bought a rifle, which was probably a little bit big for mule deer and whitetail deer. But I bought a gun that I could hunt anything I wanted to with it.
Okay.
Right? It was a 7mm Browning. Now, if anybody shot a 7mm, you can pretty much take down anything you want with it.
It's a
minus an elephant.
It's a howitzer.
Yeah.
For big game, it's a howitzer.
It's a howitzer. Yeah. But I wouldn't have to change the gun to go elk hunting, moose hunting, deer hunt. Right. Now, the first doe I shot with it, my buddy was giving me such a hard time with it because I shot her at about 100 yards, put her down real hard, went up and gory details, trigger warning, whatever you want to fucking call it, people. But when I got up to that deer, you could fit a 2-liter bottle of pop in the exit hole. She wasn't going anywhere. I had a good clean shot and I took everything out with it. Lungs, heart, everything.
For the hunters, they know what's up with that. Yeah.
Right. So howitzer, definitely a howitzer.
And if I can jump in real quick, for everybody who's still listening at this point, this is a hunting episode. If you're not interested in hearing about some of the details that go along with hunting, maybe it's time to tune in. That's what this episode's about.
Yeah.
Trigger warning, as the fucking kids would say. Sorry, buddy, to step on you. Go ahead.
No, man. You're good, man. We should have probably put that little disclaimer on the front end of this, but fuck it.
Yeah, we need people to listen after this 1 minute part, in case you don't know the statistics behind running a podcast.
Yeah.
Folks.
If you make it, at least to the end for YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube, God, make it to the end. That'd help.
Yeah, just let it play out, even if you're not paying attention.
Just ignore it.
Yeah, put it on the background.
Mute it.
Help us out.
And leave it be.
Yeah, so you mentioned like public land.
Yeah.
As you said, buddy, dangerous.
Oh, it's horrible. It's horribly dangerous.
Yeah, I've seen guys years ago hunting in Wisconsin public land with some friends. Shout out Doug. Shout out Steve Loopkeep. He's listening. Where we watched a couple of young fellas walk onto the land from the parking lot. We knew where it was. It was a fairly small piece of land. Took a pot shot at some poor little deer, way smaller than they should have.
Oh, come on.
Didn't feel like going and chasing it down, and then left. We had to go over and make sure that poor animal was like, those are the sort of things.
Fucking douchebags.
Right. Public land, somebody who just wants to go out. It is the unfortunate part that I'm bringing up here. Some people just want to shoot something.
Right.
That's not a hunter. No. That's somebody who wants I hate to use the word joy. I don't know what their emotion is in the time. But
they need to go see a goddamn therapist.
they need to talk to somebody, right? If your attitude is just, oh, I got a license because I just want to go out there and pull the trigger on something, that's not what hunters do.
Right.
Okay. I want to be clear as we're going through this episode. Mostly all of the people I know that are hunting for recreational and meat, and occasionally people like to get a big set of antlers or horns.
Let's not fucking kid ourselves. As hunters, a big ass buck, and we got a buck tag, a big ass buck rolls past us, we're taking the fucking shot.
It's exciting.
It's fucking to get that adrenaline pumping, to know that you're going to take down something like that. Oh yeah, we're taking the shot just because we see the antlers. Yes, we're there for the meat, but those antlers get us going every time.
It's pretty fun. I can say I remember years ago, I got real lucky. A friend of mine has a nice piece of hunt land outside town. He and I, my brother-in-law, cousin Matt, if you're listening, shout out cousin Matt. We love you, buddy. We're all having a good day. Within 12 minutes of each other, 3 of us all shot deer.
Oh, nice.
Right. I got a nice little healthy 6-pointer. Wasn't about the horns. It was a nice big deer. I knew there'd be some meat coming out of that. But then I hear what basically at the time for me sounded like Vietnam. 6 or 7 or 8 shots come from over in the direction of my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so either it's World War III over there, or he's having a little trouble with that iron sight rifle. And no, I'm not joking, folks. That thing was one of these military ones that was never fired, dropped once, if you know what I mean. Now he got his buck. Between him and my buddy that was in the other stand, it was a 12-pointer and an 11-pointer.
They weren't letting them go.
Mine looked pretty pathetic by comparison, but we certainly filled tags that day.
So here's the interesting, I don't mean to step on you.
No, please, man.
Something that's different from state to state. So you're saying 11-pointer, 12-pointer, 6-pointer. Now, I know what you mean, right? So your 6-pointer was a 3x3.
Yep.
Right? South Dakota growing up in Wyoming, we don't count deer as total points.
You count a half, right?
No, we count by 5x5, 6x6.
Oh yeah, you guys got some
7x6.
Yeah, you guys got some of that weird shit going, right?
That fucking weird shit, man. Come on, man. Because not all deer have the same points on each side.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
They fight, they wrestle around, they get snagged on shit. And that, like my buck, my rack that I have, it's okay. It's a 10-point buck. Right. It's a 5x5.
Listen,
it sounds bigger going 5x5.
The very first deer that I ever harvested when I came to the States and started rifle hunting, because I also bow hunt. We'll talk about that part of it here in a few minutes. I called that a 6-pointer, 3x3, as you'd say in your case, whatever, right? By the time I got over and had checked that deer after that deer had gone down, it was what my brother-in-law and my buddy and a few other people that were hunting with us would call a 5.5. One of them tines was broke off, and to this day they've never let me live that down.
Yeah,
I call that a 6-pointer. It's hanging on the wall at the hunting shack.
That was funny.
So I'd still call it a 6. What are you gonna do?
So what do you take when it comes to deer hunting? When you got a doe tag. Now, people that don't hunt, I don't know who we'd be talking to that don't hunt. I mean, in this podcast,
there's going to be a few people that and I know regularly listen that are hunters, right?
Yeah. But they know somebody that hunts. I mean, come on, fuck, we're in the Midwest.
Yeah, learn a thing or two today.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have your sights on a doe, you pop that doe, and then you walk up to it, and it's, the doe's 100, 150 yards away, 200 yards with a right. That's nothing.
If you're a good shot, right? Yeah.
You walk up to that doe, and it's a little button buck. It's got the little nub sticking out of its.
I'll be honest with you.
You're just like, oh no.
I have always been real patient and cautious to make sure that that's not a little buck or a little doe. I make real sure like that's a body. I like to walk down range a little the day before and get a couple of trees. I'll put a little flag, a little neon tape or something on them, right? To go, okay, this tree is about yay big across. I need a visual frame of reference that at 100 yards, 120 yards, which is about the biggest shot I've taken on private land. I've taken some longer ones on public, but that's about as far as our shooting lanes go. I know if it walks in front of that, I can look and go, nah, that's pretty small.
That's a little guy.
But you bring up a good point, because unfortunately, at some point, most hunters, if not all, have taken a shot out of the buck fever, quote unquote,
right,
and taken a smaller animal than they wanted to.
Right.
It happens.
Right. Well, I mean, some hunters will shoot into a herd of animals.
Blind shots happen too, right?
right? Be like, oh, I'm going to pop at that one, but then they take one that's not
everybody's a
the
good
one.
shot,
Right.
right? I'm not saying I'm a sniper marksman or everything, but I shoot and I shoot properly. Many people take it. I don't know if they call them the same thing in the States. We've never actually
Pot
talked
shots.
about. We call them sound shots.
Oh, yeah.
Where you didn't actually really see it. You kind of got a glimpse of it through like a tree line or whatever. You heard something like, oh yeah, there's a snap, boom.
Oh God, don't do that.
Right, don't do that.
I've never heard that term.
Yep.
Fuck that.
Oh, no,
because that could be somebody walking.
Well, you had some statistics about that. Statistics is how an adult would say, right? Yeah, don't take sound shots. But sound shots was something that was actively talked about where I'm from. People just taking a blind shot, hoping for the best.
Oh,
That's
God.
crazy talk. Like,
Yeah, no. And there's about 1,000 people in the US and Canada that were shot by hunters. Now, okay, back up that. 1,000 people shot in the US and Canada. Construction workers were shot.
Yeah.
Because they were working close to a hunting area.
Right, during hunting season, right?
Right.
Which the irony
In
that
2018.
is hilarious to me because most times, not always, but most times we're wearing high-vis vests, not camo.
Right, exactly. Now, how many times? Okay, bird hunting is where I could see that happening more because we're using shotguns,
Certainly.
right? And so you're spraying pellets everywhere, and some of them go in the fucking air.
Yes, they do. Ricochets happen. Ricochets are a real life thing, folks. For sure they are. Yeah.
So
1,000 people, buddy. That's
1,000 construction workers.
just construction workers. That's a big number.
That's way more than I ever thought it would be.
Now, that is that circles right back to what you're just talking about. Public land has always been more dangerous.
Horrible.
Yeah, you wouldn't if you have a chance to hunt private land, chances are you're hunting with someone who owns the land most of the time. Occasionally you can find private land that belongs to somebody and they don't hunt and you get to hunt there.
Yeah, and they have controlled access.
Right. But again, they would probably get to know you a little bit to know that you weren't some rangy, wild, shooting at everything that moves.
I fucking hope so.
They'd at least talk to you enough to go, okay, this person kind of knows what they're doing, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
man, that's crazy. A couple of comparisons, buddy. You're 130 times more likely to be injured playing football than hunting.
Right.
I bring it up because people say, oh, it's dangerous. What if you get shot by accident? Right. It's pretty rare, right?
It is pretty rare.
What else did we have here? 62 times more likely to die in a car accident. And this was the one that you brought up. This was from targettamers.com. This was an important number, I think. 9 firearm injury incidents per million hunting days across. And that's across the states, right?
Yep.
That's a low number, man.
That is pretty low. And unfortunately, I'd like to see that even lower. I mean, nobody should be getting hurt hunting, but shit happens. And I think that's what everybody needs to realize is just shit happens.
Right. And regardless of what you're doing, because we've been talking about firearms, but I also really enjoy, even though I'm going to be embarrassed about something I put out on the internet here in a minute, but I'm going to be honest, as I always try to be on this podcast. Yeah. Bow hunting is also gigantic.
Oh, yeah.
It's a much different form of hunting. It's a much more interesting form of hunting, I think, personally. It's way more solitary. And one of the biggest differences is, at least in my case, bow hunting season is camo.
Yep.
Where rifle hunting is
high vis,
blaze orange, high vis. You don't want to mistake anybody for anything, right? Because you got a firearm.
Right.
But most of the bow hunting, you're camoed up. I'll throw some pictures up on social media. I got some of me just having fun in the woods, all covered up, like ready to rock and roll. I could see injuries happening more often there.
Yeah.
But also, your range is so much shorter with a bow. If you mistake somebody for a deer at, let's say, a really experienced, really 60 yards.
60, 70, 75
right?
yards.
If you can't tell that that's not a person versus an animal at 60 or 70
Go
yards.
to the fucking optometrist.
Yeah. Your bow hunting's not for you.
Yeah. No shit.
It's as simple as that, right?
So how much do you think the U.S., how much do you think is spent, and we'll just say a 4-year period, on hunter safety education?
On hunter safety. Okay, you got really drilled down there. Mm-hmm. All right, hold on. Let me think for a real split second here, buddy. Hunter safety in a year.
we'll just go 4 years.
Okay, a 4-year span.
Because that's the number I got.
Okay, so that's the people taking. But so for everybody who doesn't know, if you want to get a license in, I think it's every single state now and across Canada, you need to have some sort of organized hunter safety training in advance that often requires a shooting test of some kind. They call it a field day.
Yep.
You do have to do that. You can't just buy a gun and go out in the woods, right?
Nope.
If you want to get a license, you have to have these things.
Yep.
Okay, hunter safety, I'm going to say $10 million a year.
More like 67 million here. In the U.S. So in a 4-year, actually it's more than that. In a 4-year span, the federal government, and between taxes and grants that the government gives states to support these, because a lot of these programs are free, right? Because they're given to youth and everything else. They're free programs for you to take for hunter safety. In a 4-year span, the government pumped out $670 million in 4 years. So that's way more than 67 million.
That's 10 times almost more than what I thought. Wow, that's a big number over 4 years, buddy. Right. And important thing to point out here too is people think they think of hunting a lot as they want a trophy or they want to get away from the house and hang out with their people.
Hey, some people hate their lives.
And some people hate their lives. That is part of it, just to get there, right? Hunting is an incredibly important thing when it comes to the population control of these animals.
Absolutely. And we have organizations that are in the U.S. that seem to think that all animals are special and that we should just let them run free. We can't.
No, we absolutely can't. Okay.
PETA.
Right, PETA. Yeah. We're big proponents of people eating tasty animals, but PETA,
yeah.
I understand where you're coming from, but I disagree entirely, and you're going to have a hard time selling me on all animals need to go.
Hey, and we hunt during the cold times of the year. We're just trying to take care of the animals. They're cold too. We're trying to bring in somewhere warm.
Right. I love it, buddy. That's fucking great. What people need to realize is there are plenty of organizations and multiple ones that offset each other. They keep track of populations of animals and how many tags, and when they say tags, the amount of people who are willing to go out and get a license, and they know how many hunt. Yeah, they know how many people that they can offer tags to, and they know the percentage of hunters who are successful versus not.
Yep.
This isn't us going out killing every single animal. This is population control. They scientifically figure it out. Yep. It's not just haphazard, people. It's really not.
And not only that, is when we come across a sick animal, say we take down an animal and happens to be sick, that is reported, given to the scientific community, given to the DNR, given into the Game Fish and Parks departments, whatever the state happens to have. It's all reported so that all that can be tracked and taken care of, because you don't want a bunch of sick animals running around there either.
Well, there's a major problem, especially in the Midwest now, and unfortunately, it's really spreading out to other parts of the country, called CWD. It's chronic wasting disease. Yeah, I was on the.
They turn deer into zombies, basically.
It basically turns deer. They look like a ragged, falling apart zombie. Is perfect, right? I couldn't have said it better, buddy. These are the things that they factor into this. There is mandatory testing in a lot of areas, which adjusts from year to year to test every single animal that is harvested to see, does it have this disease? Or there a percentage increase in this area? It's not just the hunting, it's the whole population, health and management, and those things affect entire ecosystems. People need to look at the big picture here. I know a lot of people we're talking to are like, well, obviously, dumbass. We're also talking to people who aren't hunters, who might have a...
Pass this episode to somebody that doesn't quite get it.
Right, and or who is really anti-hunting to their core, and good on you. Right. So I digress.
Well, and not only that, so let's talk a little bit deeper on what happens when you have these organizations like PETA and other supporting outfits like that fuck with the hunting season.
Dangerously sometimes.
Yep. I specifically have what I'm getting at is the Black Hills did this thing, which I don't really agree on the Game Fish and Parks of the Black Hills in South Dakota. They introduced mountain lions back into the Black Hills. So They had to plan because it's their land. It's where they were at.
Right.
They were there for a long time, and then they were gone. Over hunted. A lot of them were poached. A lot of them were just killed due to damaging livestock and people's livelihoods. Right. But so they reintroduced them, and then when they opened the hunting season for cats, is what everybody kind of refers them to, hunting the cats. An organization bought all of the hunting tags for 3 years in a row and didn't harvest a single animal. They refused to. They finally got that under control to where that wasn't happening anymore. A lot of people got red flagged and they weren't allowed to actually apply for those licenses. And what it did to that population is it let it explode to the point that it took a 22, and I probably got the numbers off a little bit. Forgive me for that. A 2,200 head elk herd that was in the Black Hills down to 200 in a matter of 3 years.
That's not good.
Cats love elk because they're slow. They can't run in the woods like the cats can.
Right.
So people need to understand that when you interfere with the harvesting of an animal, that animal overpopulates, fucks with the balance of everything else. And like you said, all of these balances, you referred to it perfectly. It's scientifically figured out how to control the numbers.
Right. Everyone who wants to go hunt doesn't get to go hunt.
Right. Yeah. You don't get to. Yeah. That's another good point, right? Is there's a chance that you don't get the tag.
Yeah. If you got to think. Yeah, you got to think ahead sometimes. You might not get one. You might be too late applying for a license, this and that. That stuff varies based by state, right?
Yep.
So yeah, it's for the people who don't know. It's not just haphazard. It's really not. So
right.
Now a couple little fun things here, man. So I suspect your number is going to be bigger than the actual one here because you're just going to assume. What do you think the percentage of male hunters versus female hunters is? How many
male to female?
How many male to how many female? Now the stat I looked up, I'll be honest with you, it was for the U.S. Wildlife and Game.
Yeah.
It talked about big game, so it was talking about moose, deer, elk, and mule deer.
I'm gonna say male to female, 4-1,
9-1.
Wow.
And I got to be honest with you, okay, buddy. When I looked that statistic up, that the amount of male hunters to female hunters was only 9-1. I was amazed that number was as small as it was. That you went 4-1 is impressive. I wish it was closer to that. I wish there was more females out there hunting regular. I thought it was going to be 30-1. Like I couldn't believe it was only 9-1.
I mean, I guess I can understand it. I'm not taking my daughter or my wife's hunting. They'll yell at the deer, "Run away!"
There's always the joke about not taking a spouse with you because they're going to ask too many questions, but we're not sexist on this podcast unless we have to be, folks.
It's too cute.
Right.
Don't shoot that one.
It's Bambi. If I have to hear Bambi one more time when I'm going hunting, like, oh my God.
Nope, it's not Bambi. It's Bambi's mom. Boom.
So on that note, buddy, this is going to be a divisive one, but I wanted to bring it up because it's the world we live in, okay?
Okay.
Not male to female, but let's say white male, or white person actually is the statistic here, versus any other race. What do you think that comparison is as far as the ratio?
90%.
90%. 70. You were pretty close, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah, and that tells me that, and that especially in the Midwest here, because it's a real melting pot of lots of different cultures, which is great. Right. Lots of whom appreciate the going out and harvesting your own meat and things like that. Yep. Yeah, it was 7-3. So that's pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be worse than that. They did say that the least represented group as far as hunting went, black people.
Really?
I want to make a joke about they're scared to be in the woods with a bunch of white dudes with guns because historically that doesn't end well. There might be something to be said for that,
there
right?
Might be.
But that was the biggest percentage discrepancy.
Hey, man, from what I understand, a lot of them are just smart to the point that, hey, they ain't going to go out in the snow and the cold and the shit. And we like to go get lost.
That might be what it is. They're more intelligent to know. I can go get food at the grocery store. I don't need to be out there in the freezing. Hey, listen, side tangent. Unpopular opinion. This is the way I feel about ice fishing. I've mentioned it before, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
I can get fish at the grocery store. I don't need to sit out freezing cold. It might be that that percentage of the population is just smarter than we are and go, why the fuck are you guys out there in the cold, freeze to death? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
I can get that kind of. Yeah.
I mean, we freeze our asses off for hunting for deer and stuff like that, but yeah, I'm not too into the whole ice fishing thing anymore. I used to go ice fishing, but don't really enjoy
I've said
it.
early and often, I don't get it. Side tangent there.
Yep. I don't like it anymore.
Right. So now let's break down real quick what is, pardon me for hiccuping there, folks. There's 2 real divisions when it comes to hunters. 3, actually, I should say, okay?
Okay, hit me.
So, division number 1, big game versus everything else. We talked briefly about that, right? Bird versus big game.
Yeah.
That's 2 different sort of hunters. Lots of people do both.
Yeah, big game hunters tend to think that they're above everybody else, though.
I do notice that I've learned...
They've got kind of a chip.
It does seem to be they think that they're doing something bigger because it's a bigger animal, right? I respect bird hunting. Again, I've only done it twice, but both times I really, really enjoyed it. And I should point out, both of those are on like a farmed land location where they release the birds. And,
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? It wasn't me out in the woods stalking, right?
Right.
I have had them, admittedly, I've been out early in the morning, walking out to the deer stand. And for those of you who don't know, you're out there before the sun comes up waiting so that they don't hear you. I've been spooked by a pheasant getting out of the woods when I was walking out by myself in the dark, right? I'll admit it.
Yep.
But so, big game versus bird, okay? And then there is backcountry versus what most of us do, going to a hunting land somewhere that a friend owns, a buddy owns, whatever, where you're sitting in a ladder stand, a made deer stand, one you built yourself, versus the backcountry people who are going trekking, training, pack on their back out in the woods, where if they get an animal, they're quartering that up and they got to walk that all the way back out.
Right.
So that's one division. There's some of what you just said within those 2. The people who backcountry, they tend to look down on just
everybody.
I'm training and I'm counting the ounces.
I spend my whole year getting ready
planning.
for this.
Yeah. And I appreciate it because don't get me wrong, dude. I want to go on one of those hunts.
I do too. I don't think I got enough motivation in me to do it though.
That's motivation isn't my issue. The time commitment, and it's a huge financial commitment.
Oh yeah.
We should be mentioning that point too.
Yeah,
Right?
while these guys are flying in and then packing in and
Which brings up a little side tangent, okay, here. So you brought up the annual spending as far as hunter safety training goes, which again, crucially important for especially young people who are getting into the sport, even adults who haven't done it before. The breakdown of the annual hunting spending nationwide. Okay.
Now the hunting spending, you're talking everything?
So imagine a pie chart in your head, which is what I'm looking at. Okay. I'm going to go around the pie chart here on what is actually spent percentage wise when it comes to hunting season. Okay.
Okay.
This one did specify it was talking about the big game people.
Okay. Yep.
Land, whether it's purchase or rental, that's 0.6% of the annual spending. That's someone buying a piece of land or renting a cabin for the weekend.
Oh God, that could get expensive fast.
Yeah, that's why it's a small percentage in this, because a lot of people aren't doing that. They're trying to find somewhere they can go stay for free.
Right.
Okay. Whether that's public or a private buddy. Right. Okay.
Right.
Obviously, we talked about licensing. They call that membership dues in this. That one's only 0.7%. I thought the licensing was going to be a little more.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, apparently
I don't know.
not, right?
Yeah, I mean, what I've paid for a tag before, that's relatively cheap when it comes to what I've spent for the trip.
Right, and because we're going to get into the other parts that people might not think, right? So there's that. Then it gets into what they said, vehicles and special, and it had special in quotation. That
Four-wheelers.
Horses, mules, things to pack in, all right? So that one bumps way up. All of a sudden, that's 12.5%. Of the annual spending is people either buying a new vehicle, buying a four-wheeler, like you said, renting mules, renting horses, whatever it is, right?
Right.
Other equipment was a weird kind of thing. I think this was all the extras. You wanted a tripod, you bought a new ladder stand, things like that. That goes to 7%. Hunting equipment. Hunting equipment included firearms, ammunition, clothing, That's 28.2%. That's basically a third of what people spend is new gear,
Yep.
new guns, new whatever every year, right?
Yep.
And that would also, we're going to talk in a minute about the third division here. That would also include bows and arrows and things like that, right?
Okay.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
Yep.
Transportation and travel expenses, 24%, and then food and lodging obviously falls into the last like 12%.
Sure.
They did include media in this list at 0.06%.
Media gotta be subscriptions for services.
That's what I assume. People who had hunting magazines, hunting online forums that they paid to be involved
Trail
in.
cam, cloud storage.
Well, trail cams count as, I should mention that counted under the hunting equipment thing.
Oh, okay.
Right. But yeah, it's some sort of thing that you were subscribed to get a few bucks in. So anyways, we won't beat a dead horse there. But what did you think, now that I mentioned that, you talked about the hunter safety part, annual spending in the United States across all the states, what's spent every year through all those percentages, right? The whole pie chart on hunting big game. Because this one was specifically big game. It would be a bigger number if you included everything. Annual spending.
Just for big game, I'm going to
give you a hint, buddy. Before I say this, okay? I want to give you a hint. The annual spending.
Okay. The annual spending just for big game happens to be...
It starts with a B. I'm going to give you a hint. It starts with a B.
Yeah, so I'm happy you said that. I was actually going to say 3 billion.
3.34.
Oh my God, I was close.
Which, as a comparison to our Canada Day and 4th of July episode,
Yeah.
that's 3 times as much as they spend on fireworks in the United States annually.
That is crazy. $3.3 billion for a small percentage of people that hunt. We spend an awful lot of money to hunt.
We spend an awful lot of money to hunt. And real quick side note here, man, before I forget, something important to point out is even if you don't hunt, let's say you buy the occasional lottery ticket or scratcher.
Yeah.
For most people who don't know, especially in the Midwest, a gigantic percentage of licensing fees and taxes that come from not only big game hunting, but bird, fishing, wildlife, things like that.
Yep.
That stuff from the lottery goes a lot into paying for the wildlife management, the companies that do all those things we talked about.
Right.
If you don't know, thank you for everybody who does buy the odd lottery ticket, because that goes into supporting this whole thing.
Yep. Yeah, that's the thing that other people need to realize is the land management that's done for this, for hunting land and public hunting land and feeding lots. And there's so many, I don't know what they call it in Minnesota here. South Dakota used to call it COP property, I believe is what it was. Government controlled or government paid for agricultural land.
Okay, I don't know what the comparison is in the Midwest here. No.
The government would pay farmers to plant corn crop or bean crop and just leave it for the animals to feed on.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, yeah. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, again, another quick side tangent here. Your animals will taste different on the back end if you're a hunter for food. If they're eating good, healthy food like corn stalk and soy and things like that versus one in a terrible area that's chewing on trees all the time.
Yep.
If you've hunted long enough, you get one of them scrub bucks or something. They taste like
garbage. Yeah, when they're chewing on pine needles and pine cones and shit.
Right. So, third division, buddy. Rifle versus bow.
Yeah, I could see that division.
It's absolutely a huge one.
I will tell where my stand is on that is when it comes down to bow hunting. Now, bow hunters need a whole lot more patience.
Yep.
You
got to put in more time.
Put in way more time. Most bow hunters that I know, they don't get a deer every year. They don't even get a deer every other year. I know guys that will go out and get a deer every 4 or 5 years.
And see, I must be working with a lot of people who are really proficient, because most of the people I work with are pretty successful every year.
Either that or they're sitting on good land.
Well, there's also that too.
Right.
They're diligent. If it's a piece of land, because some people only get the 10 days of hunting season with rifle, and that's all they get, right?
Right.
And then bow is a much longer season for that specific
Yep.
reason, right? I can tell you myself personally, okay, we were talking before we recorded today. When I first started shooting bow, I got real lucky. It turned out I was really proficient. I was a natural with a bow. Placed 11th in the state of Minnesota in 2007, and would have been in the top 10, but I had a terrible flu. That's not an excuse. I would have been in the top 10. I was real close even with the flu.
He would like to think so.
I would like to think so. That does not in any way, shape, or form translate to the field.
Right.
I have only taken 2 shots, what I call in anger, bow hunting in the field.
Okay.
And with buck fever, missed both times.
Right.
I still like getting out with the bow, but it's a much, in my opinion, it's a much more difficult skill than someone who has a nice sighted in rifle to just line everything up.
Right. It takes a lot more. And oops, don't slide the bottle across the table.
Our new digs, we're still getting used to the noises here, folks.
But yeah, it takes a hell of a lot more patience. It takes more precision. And I don't care what anybody says, like, it's the closest thing to
What they would call traditional hunting, I would say.
Yeah, traditional hunting, caveman hunting.
Right.
It's the closest thing you're going to get to that primitive. But that's the word I was looking for. Primitive hunting.
Primitive is good.
And it puts you up close and personal to that animal. A lot of people, almost anybody can take a 100-yard shot with a rifle.
If you practice even a little bit.
Yep, you're usually pretty okay. Yeah. You hit a deer with a bullet in any part of their body, yes, you might ruin some meat. They're going to go down, usually.
Right, and certainly there is any hunter who's worth their salt, as they say, knows where to shoot on an animal to limit the amount of time between shot and
death.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, also that being said, listen, let's be real honest, real quick here. Okay, that's in my opinion the best possible death for almost all of those animals. The alternative is sickness and being hunger, freezing to death, being chased down by a predator and dying while alive.
Yeah, while being eaten.
Most hunters that put an animal down and harvest an animal, it's probably the least traumatic version of how that animal could go, in my opinion.
No, you're 100% right. You're 100% right.
So.
Now, I've seen, and anybody that has spent any time hunting usually has seen at least one bad shot on an animal.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
Yep.
The one doe that I took down, I took a couple of them down, but the one that I remember had a shot that went right through her ear because the hunter missed.
It happens, buddy.
And it's just like, I know the ear really didn't hurt her any. Like,
right.
But,
spooked more than anything, probably.
But it's just like, well, you fucked that one up. Good thing you didn't hit her anywhere else.
Yeah, listen, I'm happy to toot my own horn in this particular case. The grand total of all the deer I've taken down, if I take one out of the list, the distance they traveled is less than 20 yards all put together. I have passed up on deer because I had a less than ideal shot, and not only for my own personal, I didn't want to track the darn thing, but I didn't want anything to suffer. I'm not there to make some animal suffer.
Right.
Harvest and meat. That's my plan.
Okay, I've got a story for you.
Give her.
And a lot of people might fucking hate me for this.
That's
Randy,
isawpodcast.com.
Randy H., you know who you are, man. If you're listening to this, this is our story of my buck that I shot. So we were hunting. We were on a 5-day hunt. It was me and 2 other guys. We were having the time of our lives. Honestly, after the 5-day hunt, I think we pulled 8 deer out, right? So we were doing very well between 3 of us, pulling 8 deer out of this public hunting area. I had saw a buck the day before, and I took a shot at him. He was from ridge to ridge, probably 120, 130 yards. Buck fever hit. I went right under his belly.
It's a real life thing.
Right. And I'm happy I missed him at that point, because if I would have belly shot him, I would have felt bad. Right. The next day we walked this ridge, or walked this ravine, and we're coming around, and all 3 of us were there because I wanted to go see if this buck left the area, because I spooked him pretty hard and I figured he'd probably bolted. Luckily for me, he was still in rut. He was still looking for a piece of ass, so he stuck around. right?
God bless the right.
Right. We came up on him. My buddy started yelling, buck, buck, buck. And I saw him. He was the exact same buck. And he was coming out of a tree line. I knelt down to stabilize myself because I didn't want to miss him again, and had my bead on him. He was at about 100 yards at this point. He walked behind a tree. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to wait for him to move. Well, he didn't move. He stayed there because he saw my buddy to the left. So he stopped, right? And I'm like, shit. So we waited there for a little bit, and then he started to move again a little bit. And then I saw a chest shot open up. And he was still behind this tree. The tree wasn't taking all of him, but the tree was splitting him right in half, right? I saw the chest shot, so I decided to take it. Buck fever hit again. I ended up shooting him right through his spine, way off. I went right through the back straps, which is right above the back hips, right? Took out both back straps, ruined that beautiful cut of meat. He was a big boy. Well, of course, he didn't die right away. He couldn't walk anywhere. He was dragging him. My buddy Randy, the crazy son of a bitch, he ran up. He ran in front of me. I was trying to chamber another one to take that chest shot to put the deer down. He was in my way now. He was in front of me, not taking another shot. So I'm chasing after him. He tackles this 5x5.
Tackled the deer.
Tackled it.
Oh, so your friend's retired. Okay,
yeah,
go
he's
ahead.
Fucking nuts, man. Fucking nuts. He grabbed the horns and laid on him. And I'm like, dude, you could have gotten spined so fucking easily.
Oh my God.
And he was a big boy. And I ended up having to slice his throat. It's a horrible story, but
right.
And that's also the type of things that happen and I was an inexperienced deer hunter at that point. That was my first deer hunt.
Right.
Not my first deer, but it was certainly my first and only buck I've shot. So those things do happen in real life.
Listen, danger's going to happen out there. We talked about the amount of construction workers alone that get hit every year, right? 1,000. That's a big number just by being around the hunting area.
Right.
So you're onto it there, man.
They're not all pretty, happy stories.
No, but a good hunter, a conscientious hunter, which is, I believe, most hunters out there, they're not looking for suffering. They're looking for a quick, easy, painless harvest. And
if they do, and I'll be frankly honest with you, and I think a lot of reason why that is that if you've ever injured a deer and heard a deer cry, you'll never do it again. Yeah.
It's not heartless.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it is the worst thing that you can hear.
Yeah. I can't imagine certainly not any hunter I know, looking to have an animal suffer in any way.
No.
It's actually the exact opposite. I would rather miss this year than hurt something, chase it down, knowing it was suffering. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
And so you say that, man. Years ago, I shoot from a rifle. I also do bow hunt, but again, I have not had any success with that yet. Won't stop me from keeping trying. But I was on public land years ago before I found a good group of people to hunt with. And I had just gotten out of the stand. It was a freezing cold day in Wisconsin.
Yep.
I needed to go back to the truck, warm up my feet a little bit for a while. I get out of the stand. I start walking across this hill, and I shoot a 270. I shoot a Mossberg. It's a real flat, long-range rifle, and I practice, folks. I want to be successful. I don't just taking pot shots. I saw a big buck walking in and out of a tree line, 150, 160 away. I'm like, I lay down in the snow, still freezing cold, prone. I'm going to give it a chance. Same thing. Walked behind a great big maple. Branches, thick tree. I'm like, okay, well, I'll just sit here for a few minutes, see if it calms down. Maybe it takes a step out. Maybe I get a chance. 15 minutes later, finally it steps back out to where I want. And after 50 minutes, I'm like, is this thing dead? Why is it not moving? It sat there for a while. It felt like 15. Could have been 3 minutes. God knows. It finally takes a step out. I line up. I'm a little jittery. I'm a little shaky with the cold. I take one. I see it bound off. My buddy is close down in that direction, not in my direction of shooting, but I know he's down there. He probably had a look at what was going on, and he could see me up on this rise. We finally meet up. I saw him over in the area. I thought he had found it. I'm like, hey, man, where is it? What happened? He's like, you're not going to believe it, man. 138-point maple. I hit the goddamn tree.
Oh, no way.
In retrospect, better than winging it and not and hurting an animal, right? Which is why I bring it up. But I think to this day, I laugh. He's like, yeah, man, 138-point maple. Biggest one I ever saw. I'm like, fuck you, you prick.
That is great.
I'm all excited, right?
That's awesome.
And then, of course, there's times where things go bad. So where I'm from, there's a much bigger population of moose than deer.
Yep.
By a lot, right? And it's one of these things where people like the gigantic rack and right. I personally, I'll eat moose meat in certain ways. I don't love it.
Yeah.
I had a roommate. If you ever listen to Sean and Chad, one of their family used to send care packages to them, and they had moose sausage that was made that we used to put in the barbecue that was fantastic. But as a rule, I wasn't a huge fan of eating it. And as I say, if I won't eat it, I'm not hunting it.
Yep.
It's as simple as that, right?
The best meat I think I've ever had from wild game is probably elk. Elk steaks tend to be the best, I think.
I do like an elk steak. I haven't hunted elk myself. Yeah. I'm interested one day. A friend of ours recently got back from one last year, and he said he had a hell of a time. I like elk meat quite a bit. My favorite is still venison.
Yep.
But it is what it is. So my old man was he enjoyed moose hunting. Mm-hmm. And for a while had a guide service.
Oh, okay.
Painted sign, and this was in the Highlands of Cape Breton. Painted sign down at the driveway, right? Moose guide, had the phone number. He told people when they came, and this is way back in the day, and he's passed now, so there's no statute of limitations or anything. They had to have a license, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. He said they could show up in the morning. He gave them the time. He said, you can sit here on my patio. Don't shoot the first moose you see, because a bunch of them come down the wood road, through the property, and down into the river. Wait for a good one. Or, because that was $500. Or for $2,500, he'd take you up into the woods for a hunting experience. From my understanding, only one group ever wanted to go into the woods, and everybody else just wanted to get a moose, right?
Right.
He used to have a rifle, and they lived in the Highlands of Cape Breton. It's a really rural area. Had a rifle and then a shotgun, bullets right inside the door, just in case something came by. Maybe he'd have a pot shot opportunity to get something, right? Always legal. Always legal.
Right.
Saw something, a moose bumping around up in the woods. Told my mother, hey, grab the rifle, get me some bullets. I'm going to go up and see if I can catch that or whatever, right? Didn't come back for a long, long time. Well, it turned out he'd taken the wrong bullets. He was kind of in a rush to get out.
Oh, no.
Click. First one, he went to take a shot. Wrong bullet. Click. Nothing. Moose treed him.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, he was up in the tree for a while, waiting until the moose got bored and left.
Oh, fuck.
Had no way to take a shot at
that poor bastard. Right? Jesus.
I think about that every time I leave now. It's why I tell myself that's why I only own one hunting rifle, because I don't want no confusion. Right. I don't want to get out there and take a shot and go, uh-oh.
Yep.
So,
dude, it keeps, every time I think about hunting moose, all I see in my mind is the video that I watched of a fucking moose running on water. I didn't think that they could run on water. Those fuckers can run on water just like Jesus can walk on it.
They are so fast, and they've got such long legs that,
and big ass hooves.
Right. If they're in a reasonable amount of water, I know you say run, it appears as if they're running on water.
I need to show you the video.
I will, yeah.
This dude is recording him from his boat that he's going down the river, and a moose runs across in front of him.
Yeah, they're scary fast. You don't think for such a
like
big
30 miles an hour.
Yeah, they're scary fast.
And that moose is on the water.
Yeah.
Like, dude.
If we can find that, we'll put that on social media, folks. It's
I'll find it.
Yeah, find that. We'll put that up. The greatest thing about them is, and I say greatest, that's not the right word. The most worrisome part about them is not only are they dumb, as I mentioned earlier. Mm-hmm. So in the wintertime at home, back where I'm from, when they plow the roads, the moose will get out on the highway because it's already plowed and they don't have to walk through the snow, and they'll stand right in the middle of the goddamn road. Yep. Here's the problem with moose, folks. They are disproportionate between the tall, skinny legs they're on and the size of their body. And if you hit one of these things, they're so tall, it's turning your car into a convertible.
Yep. It's
not
taking
like,
your head off.
It's not like hitting a deer where you fuck up your car and mess up your windshield and they're bounce off. Yep. If you hit a moose at high speed in the highway, if they're standing sideways, all that weight goes right through the cabin of your car or truck.
Yep.
And you better hope you were smart enough to duck your head quick because it's taking that thing off.
Yep. That is a lot of mass.
That's a 1967 Bel Air instantly.
Yep.
Gone. Like,
yep.
Scary, man.
Yep.
And we also have, for the people in Canada who do listen, they have this brain worm that gets into a lot of moose that makes them half like crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So for years, and maybe even still now, if you harvested a moose, you had to take the head initially to the DNR to get tested. To test to see if that was the case. Yep. I do know for a fact that a lot of people took moose out of season or without a license that weren't supposed to, and then went to the DNR and went, geez, man, it was acting funny and it was squirreling, it was huff. I had to take it. I think it had that brain worm, and then turned out that it didn't. They just used it as an excuse to shoot him.
Come on now.
And then what's the DNR going to do? Well, they're not going to waste that. Well, we tested it. It's not. Okay, well, now that I took it, I might as well just process that meat.
Right.
With everything, there's some scams going on, right? Because we didn't talk about poaching yet.
No, that's a big thing.
Poaching is a problem, right?
Yep.
I looked up some stats. It's so much more prevalent in the lower part of the states.
Yeah. Yep.
It's not as big up north.
And so our biggest thing up north is spotlighting.
Yeah,
that's a huge problem.
Yeah. Shine and deer. We used to call that shine and deer.
That's our big problem.
Yeah, if you don't know, folks, the same as headlights on a car. You fire a bright light in a lot of big game's eyes, and they just freeze up.
Yep.
And it only works at night because that's when they see the light. A lot of poachers will use shine and deer and spot and deer to get a few extra here and there. It's unfortunate, but it does happen, right? It's part of the business. They factor in a certain amount of people illegally hunting. Yep. And again, as I saw, the numbers weren't even close. Cut the country in half, east to west. Mm-hmm. Poaching was so much more prevalent, like 8-1 below that midpoint.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
It's a huge
That's
percent.
insane.
And that's what they can prove. So wait, are northern people maybe better at poaching, not getting caught? Maybe.
I mean, maybe.
But I think the DNR is probably a good country ride, basically. So
right. I mean, there may have been a chance that when I was like a kid and I was running around with my buddies that we drove through a couple of farm fields after a coyote to smack them with a car door. Tried to. We got one out of like 10.
Visually, that sounds funny. Would that really take out an animal?
Oh, it does.
It will.
Yeah,
Okay.
it breaks their neck.
That's rough. That's rough.
Because then you end up running them over too.
Right.
But
so
the damage to the car isn't worth it, though. I can tell you that much.
When we're young, we don't think in those sort of concepts, I guess. So we will probably be getting out hunting this year, buddy, for everybody who is listening.
Yep.
Again, just a quick talk, have some fun about everything that's going on with the hunting season. For those of you who aren't hunters, maybe you learned a thing if you listen to the end here. Shout out to my brother Greg, Kevin, and Nigel. They're in the midst of building a brand new hunting shack right now back in Nova Scotia.
Oh, fantastic.
We've been seeing the highlights. If you are following us on social media, you notice that we follow Tiny Homes Atlantic. We had an episode with Greg and Nigel way back. Check out the photos of the new shack. It's going to be great. And if you are going hunting this year and you do happen to have a fun story, you get a good image, please send it to our social media. We'll be more than happy to share it with everybody out there and shout you out if you have some success. Keep them PG for us if you can. Nothing really grisly, because YouTube is a nightmare as far as some of that stuff goes.
Right. We can't show everything.
Right.
But your successes, though?
Yeah, please.
Send us your successes.
Everybody who is actually a hunter, and I know we talked about some various things here, but as much as we might love having meat in the freezer, and we might love the camaraderie and the relaxation, mental health of being away from the cities, out just decompressing, we also like to see pictures of horns and bucks and big bears, and we're down, folks. Yeah, if you get a big elk, we're down for it. We want to see all those photos, so please let us know.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, happy to chit chat about this. This is always a fun time of the year. But rate, review, subscribe for us, man. I mean,
please.
It takes almost no time and it's completely free, but it helps with statistics and it helps tracking and it helps all these things. Lets us know how we're doing. And you can, again, find us on our website.
Yeah,
Pretty simple. Everything.
All the important stuff is at
isawpod.
isawpodcast.com. That's right, buddy. Please check out the Buy Us a Beer widget on our website. Help out this little podcast if you want. DMs, obviously, through Instagram. If you want to send a message to the phone number 507-607-ISAW, you can send a text or leave us voice messages.
Yep.
If you have any ideas that you'd like to hear for upcoming episodes, we are always very open to those. And other than that, fun talk today, man. I know it's not really construction related, but even if you're not a hunter, pay attention over the next month. You're going to hear a lot of these conversations.
Yeah.
It's a real common thing with construction people, especially. So,
For sure.
yeah. And hopefully John and I get a chance to go out this year, maybe do some hunting. If we do, we'll also put up some stories and images and things from what we got going.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Thank you, everybody, this week. We really appreciate you, as always, for listening. We always tell you your work keeps the world working, and we couldn't mean that more this week than any other week. We really appreciate everybody who takes the time. And other than that, buddy, am I forgetting anything?
Not a damn thing. We've drug it along far enough.
I think so. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Be safe out there this week, and sláinte.
Sláinte.